You're listening to Prep Insider Radio with your hosts, Tommy Morris.
Good. This is nothing to do with State Creek Baseball, I'm sorry, but have you seen a series of Fortunate Events?
Christian Pedersen.
I mean, I'm out here grinding. I'm putting in hours. I'm getting there at 5 a.m. to cheer on the water polo team at practice. I'm showing up to our basketball team. I'm showing up to our football games. We don't even have a football team, and I'm supporting that.
Noah Laxina.
And Noah Laxina's number 3 tip for Valentine's Day is...
Chill, man. Things are going to be all right. All right? You don't want to force it. Let it happen. You're going to be all right.
And Bodie De Silva from Scorebook Live.
I mean, he brought basketball into that one. I got to give him 9 out of 10. I like that.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of San Diego Prep Insider. The person that we also left off of that intro is Colton Toll, our intern. What's up, Colton?
Well, yeah, when he
what is up, everybody?
When he graduates from intern, then he gets to be in the intro.
Fair enough. Or when he says something stupid on air. That is the other time that he will get not anything intelligent or forthright. Christian Pedersen, Tommy Morris. We're all here in studio, so let's all do the proper introductions.
Tommy Morris.
Bodie De Silva.
Noah Laxina.
One more time.
Bodie De Silva.
From Scorebook Live.
Correct.
Yes.
SB Live CA.
Yes, SB Live CA. Tommy Morris is pointing at something. So here's what the reality of life is right now for us as a group. We're getting there. Our technological understanding is better every week, but we only do this show once a week, so we don't have a ton of practice time to test out all of our stuff. So today you will not be able to see us. You will only be able to hear us, but you will be able to watch us play Mario Kart while we have 2 separate discussions about high school sports. Guys, I want to poll the room. Do you want to do the fun one or the serious one first?
I'm very serious, so serious.
Yeah, let's go serious.
Let's get it done.
Colton?
Serious.
Ah, man, the intern's scared to jump.
I know. I was like, he's gonna go against us.
Yeah, that was your chance to come in there with a yeehaw on a joking one. Okay, so serious note. The Union Tribune, Mark Ziegler, as we look, whoever is player 3 there needs to pick the settings for their vehicle and get us going. Mark Ziegler in the San Diego Union Tribune this week wrote an article about potentially there being some political slants and aspects to high school sports' return. There might be some element of, this Democrat versus Republican partisanship that's holding back schools opening up right now versus, I don't know. It just seemed like there was a lot of weird incongruent facts that were being thrown together to kind of say, oh, we need to play high school sports ASAP. But to me, it felt kind of like, okay, you're proving that everything is safe. So why doesn't this mean we should just be happy that 60 to 70 days from now we will be starting successfully and safe? And I thought it was kind of uncomfortable to still be making this argument of, let's use, we're using the kids as pawns. We're not using the kids as pawns. We argue what was your guys' take on this article, Bodie?
Yeah, my first thought, and I completely understand where he's trying to go with it, but as you've said, as of now, there's no reason to think that in 2 months from now we'll get stuff started. Now, the argument to that would be, how does it make sense that some private schools, some districts have been allowed to return, others haven't seen their kids since March? It's caused frustration, I think, throughout different staffs and different sports of, well, we need to be able to be around our kids in preparation for a season. And at what point are we going to be allowed to do that? And what disadvantage is it putting us at where we're still not having access to begin some sort of conditioning or training when others have been going for a while? So I think that's probably where the most frustration's coming from. But as of now, I don't think there's any reason to think that come December 13th, 18th, whatever that date may be, that teams will get back on the field and be able to begin practicing for the January start.
So what you're saying right now is you don't see this happening. You don't see high school sports happening. Oh, you're saying you do
Correct.
see it.
I see it happening. I think there's just frustration from those who since March have not been able to to be with their players, their student athletes, where other districts, maybe some private schools, have gotten waivers to start early or have just been going maybe without the proper protocols and just have been doing it anyways and haven't been caught. So I just think everyone not being on the same page of when they can come back and at least start conditioning or some sort of training is probably the root of where the frustration is.
No, I think the root of the frustration is that it appears to me that some people aren't following the rules as far as more egregious than, they're practicing, because you are allowed to practice. That's fine. If you look on Twitter or whatever, you see 7-on-7 games, you see AAU basketball tournaments. All these things are not supposed to be happening. And it mentioned in the article, you have kids having to drive all the way to Arizona. I think it specifically mentioned, like the Del Mar Sharks and was the other Del Mar team that they have at the
Surf.
Surf, yeah, Surf and Sharks. Sorry, their fields are 3 miles away from each other. They have to go play in Arizona. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense in a sense that it appears that no one's following the rules. And I think the frustration is there hasn't been a problem yet from all the people who are breaking the rules. Maybe they're just not saying anything. And if you look at other states, there hasn't been a problem at anything. If you look at even the professional ranks, the problems have not come from contests. They've come from teams interacting with each other off the field. And I think a lot of frustration too, and what I've heard from kids is, well, we hang out all the time out of school, even or after Zoom or whatever anyway. Like, how is it any different if we go to the field and throw the ball? And that's a real question. If the parents are okay with the kids hanging out with each other, at the beach, how is that any different than them hanging out with each other on a football field? And that's an answer I don't think anyone has. There's no good answer to that, because it comes back to, are the parents willing to let their child potentially expose themselves by hanging out with friends or not? And if the parent is willing, it's really hard to say no. And I think this really comes down to not a political thing, but a liability thing, because there is no precedent right now for if somebody gets sick and has something really bad happen to them, or am I going to get sued? And I think that is the biggest problem, because it hasn't happened yet. There hasn't been a case where a bar or restaurant now are the people who are getting in trouble for community spread. There hasn't been a case where something bad's happened and then somebody goes and sues the establishment. And until that either goes through or doesn't, and there's precedent there, we're going to be stuck in this gray area.
We're kind of rehashing last week's show, and I don't think really getting to the core of what made me uncomfortable about the article, and that was the aggressive tie-ins to mental health and this just obligatory statement of that everything right now is incredibly, we're bordering on red line. As Tommy, what are you doing? What are you trying to figure out
I'm
here?
on that stupid setting where I have to turn.
I think we have to start the next race,
Okay.
pause it,
Right.
and then you'll get it figured out. I would like to point out, despite not starting for the first 30 seconds of that race, I still didn't finish last. But it's something that there was this weave-in and tie-in of we're reaching this red line point, hypothetically, where high school kids are more stressed, more depressed. This is something that singularly bringing sports back could have such this massive long-term ramifications. And is it wrong to say that to me it felt uncomfortable that an adult was trying to make that point about? I want to hear that from high school kids. Like, I keep hearing a lot of adults making these arguments on behalf of high school kids, but I don't really feel like I see videos and testimonies or tweets or anything like that. You sons of guns, you started it again. This is the downside of this studio. I'm the one person facing away from the televisions naturally. But am I wrong to sort of say that I feel very unstable and unsure talking about somebody else's mental health?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's just what makes me the most uncomfortable, is that I don't want to feel like I'm ever comfortable enough to be like, oh yes, I can confidently say football coming back helps every single one of those people. Like,
Well, yeah, well, believe it or not, none of the four of us are psychiatrists, so we're not qualified to speak on it. But I kind of understand the fact too. If I was a kid who had aspirations of playing college, and just being realistic, there's only a handful of kids in not just San Diego County, but any county where this is really an issue, I would be freaking out. I would, because I would be seeing kids in other states playing, getting to put tape out there, getting an opportunity to showcase themselves, and I can't do it. And I think that is a real problem. This is not meant to offend anybody, but unless you're one of the type of kids who's been contacted by Division I colleges already, this doesn't really affect you. Sorry. But for those handful of kids, I fully understand it. I also can see a kid who's worked their whole life to get to play their senior year. You know what I mean? All they've wanted to do, and then maybe they didn't get to play much for junior year with the promise of next year is going to be my year, and now they might not get it. I fully understand, and we ought to keep in mind too, like 17, 18-year-old kids, that has been their whole life. You know what I mean? Like there is no, I know we can all speak to this. Like when we were kids and people would say, oh, this will help you later in life, or, oh, you look back on this and you'll have fond memories for things we didn't want to do and stuff like that. Like now we get it. They're in it right now. They have no perspective outside of just what their existence has been for their whole entire life, basically, which has been that sport. So,
well, let's turn to
difficult.
Colton on this. Colton, let's not assume necessarily that you have friends, but I would hope that you still have friends that are in high school and some kids that are younger than you. Are you hearing anything from people along these lines? I mean, are people legitimately like at a point where not having sports is negative and stressing on their lives?
I think so. I really do. A lot of these kids, like, this is what they do for like their life. Like they grind a lot. The hours that they're playing, like they really do dedicate a lot of their time to the sport. And I do think it can take a toll on their mental health at some point. Obviously, we're not in a position to state that for them, but like I feel that if they were to come out and say it, they would say that it really can take a toll on their mental health.
Noah, you're kind of, I'd say, a generation gap between both Colton and all of us. So you have started to live life without sports. I mean, you're still out there doing stuff. You're going to college and whatnot, but you went from very centrally involved in sports.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would say maybe our generation, me, Tommy, Bodie, is far enough away that we're now starting to turn to that other side of like, oh yeah, the life side memories. Like, what's your mental health take on all this?
Well, from a player's perspective, you have to think about all that.
No, not a player's perspective. Just Noah Laxtina's like, how do you read and absorb all this information? You're a smart dude, but you see things differently than the rest of us.
I see it as there's two things. There's two parts to this. One, I'm thinking about how the players feel, and from that perspective, you have to realize how, like Tommy said, how dedicated they've been their whole lives to this one single sport. And it's tough because I can't imagine me having my senior year taken away. I didn't do that good as a junior and as a sophomore in high school. So to have that senior opportunity, that last chance to prove myself, it was a big part of my life. And to see that potentially be taken away due to Corona, hopefully it doesn't, but just the circumstances we're in, that's tough. Also, from a coach's perspective, in human nature, no one wants to feel like they're at a disadvantage, right? Regardless, there could be teams that you don't even see on the schedule, like you're not even going to play them during the season, but just to see the fact that they're getting kind of an advantage just from being able to do certain things that other schools aren't, and it's not their fault. They're just doing what they're told, but at the same time, it's just human nature to see someone else start a little bit ahead of schedule. It's like running a 100-meter race, and you're at the 0 mark, and someone's at the 20 mark. Yeah, it's not gonna affect your PR, but at the end of the day, like you want everyone to start the same from the same position. And I think from a coach's standpoint, that's kind of tough to see when you're seeing these different starting points for different teams. And it just goes back to the fact that this is 2020. It's been the weirdest year we've had, and having to deal with all these different type of factors have played into this chaos that is trying to get sports back.
And I will say this too. I think what doesn't help, and I'm going to second what Bodie said. As of right now, it appears that they're not going to change the start date. So I'm not going full Mayday yet. I think the December start date is very, very reasonable, and it is probably something's going to happen. But if you talk to people who have done like any sort of Navy SEAL training or anything or you had to get in, you know what I mean, where they have to go through the boot camp and everything, the biggest, because they try to mentally break you. That's kind of part of it. The hardest thing that they do is they just don't tell you when the thing's going to end. They just say, go run. And you have to keep at this pace, and they don't tell you when it's over. Because it is mentally draining to not know when it's going to be over. And for a lot of these kids, I think they don't trust when they're given, oh, we'll start at this date. They don't trust it anymore. And I think that is what's kind of, if anything for me was going to be a problem being that age, it would be that, just not being able to know when it's going to start. And there's really nothing you can do at this point. You know, I mean, like nobody really knows what's going on with all this stuff, and you get a December start date and you get excited about it, but then you see other things get pushed back. So it's just the mind game of not knowing when, and that is what's tough for these kids, I think.
Yeah, it certainly to me seems like the word control is at the core of the fear here more than anything else. Like, it doesn't almost seem like a sports thing. It just seems like a group of people who are used to having a very scheduled, controlled part of their life. It no longer has a schedule or they have any control over it. And that seems to be the actual fear. I don't know. I just feel like fighting this, the future of our youth is on the line because specifically they won't be able to go out there and throw a ball through a net or something like that. Seems like maybe that's oversimplifying the issue. I don't know.
I think there's a lot more to what sports brings to the table, though, than throwing a ball.
Well, no, but I'm saying I'm understanding that, but I'm saying, are there zero other outlets for that kind of stuff to happen? Because you're saying that it is somehow intrinsic upon the act of shooting a water polo ball or tackling somebody that someone gains brotherhood and happiness and the skills to not, fail in life and toughness, and they fight off depression. And it seems to me like, okay, this is maybe just too much being placed on one specific thing and not enough being said to, hey, how can we find alternatives to this for the next 70 or 80 days? And just be happy that sports, like everyone in this room has said, very likely is coming back because we have not heard otherwise. Schools are starting to populate in different ways, from Grossmont having different groups of campus populations on campus once a day. Some schools are doing, a 2 hours different. Like, it's starting to happen at 20 to 50%. So we're going to get sports back. I don't know. It seems dramatic.
So I feel like I'm hogging the mic here. But
close this out, Tommy, and then let's have some fun.
It's just because I was fortunate enough to never have this happen to me as a kid. And if any of you in this room did, then you can chime in on this. But it's similar to me when you see a kid who's a senior in high school hurt his knee in like the first game of the season. And they start crying, not because it hurts, but because they know it's over. And I think for a lot of these kids, they sometimes go to bed at night with that feeling, not knowing if it's over. And it's brutal, but I just, But
that's what I'm saying. It's not over. We're all like.
But what I'm saying is there is no replacement, because you've looked forward to this for theoretically a lot of these kids went to these games when they were 5 years old all the way until they got to be old enough to be at high school and get to be on the team. You know what I mean? Like that's what they wanted to do for a long time. And for kids like that, it is tough. And again, it is not. I don't think. I really think December is going to happen, so kids don't freak out. But I think there's some kids who don't trust it, and for kids like that, it is really, really tough. And it's the same mindset that kids who get hurt have, knowing that it theoretically potentially could be over.
I don't know. I just feel like the article was very confident. The article that got us going here on Mark Ziegler's piece, you can check it out at the Union Tribune. We will not retweet.
You're either going to like it or hate it.
We'll not retweet it, but we'll drop the links in certain places because it's not what we endorse. It's just what we're discussing. But it in itself was so confident sports are going to be happening. It just seems like there needed to be more optimism and less pessimism. Speaking of optimism, guys, I gave you the choice at the beginning of the show. Do you want to start funny? Do you want to start serious? You said let's start serious. So let's switch over into the fun. And I will say this, just breaking a little bit of the fourth wall. I think this is going incredibly better than planned on this last track. This seemed very scary, having all these acceleration pads and stuff. I have no idea which any of you are. So I don't know if I've been like specifically
You're
bumping
so
or
lucky
any
I got
of
a
you right
stupid
now.
banana.
But I think somebody just hit me that's on the screen right now. Over to the fun side, and we'll get Colton involved in this as well if you're willing to, Colton, but I know we're kind of doing this on the fly here with you. But let's talk about, if everybody is this optimistic about football coming back, let's talk about some players, groups, teams, offensive squads, defense, like whatever it is, just some what's good, with some people to look forward to that you specifically are like, yeah, that excites me that I get to watch that person or that thing happen for football season this year. Tommy, let's start with you.
Talk about a couple football players. I'm going to start by stealing a La Jolla guy from you. I'm going to talk about Max Smith, who is committed to Navy. I like the two-way guys.
The midshipman.
Huge fan of two-way guys. He will probably end up playing defense in college, but he is not the biggest dude, but hits the hardest, and it's hard to find guys like that because you can't really measure that in a combine. So good job, Max. And
multiple interceptions off Tyler Buckner last year. All I'm saying.
Wow,
he might be the only.
He's
He's got to be the only person to do that. The same person having two?
Yeah, two big ones too, even though we lost that game.
Gotta look that up. And then we'll go to Patrick Henry with Kai Jesse, who's committed to New Mexico. Awesome story. It is the reason why I want to highlight him is because I also like the multi-sport guys. He was the guy who was a basketball guy, decided to try football, which is a pretty good idea considering his dad and grandpa were both pretty good at it. I'll let Bodie get more detail about that. See that transition, how I'm doing that. But good for him. You know, he decided to take football seriously, and it seems like he's enjoying it.
Yeah, moving over, Kai Jesse's one of the guys I want to bring up, but just the receiver group in general, whether it's guys who are just receivers or the two-way guys, there's so many guys to look forward to this year. Darren Barkins from Mater Dei Catholic headed to Oregon. Cam Beecham up at Oceanside, probably a guy who's a tight end in college, but headed to Arizona State. Jesse Campbell at Mater Dei Catholic going to Army. Sky Donnell at Mission Hills, multiple punt returns for touchdowns last year. Isaiah King at Montgomery. Josh Meredith at Mater Dei Catholic headed to Fresno State. Desir Paget over at Lincoln headed to Nevada. Just so many guys you can name, but I really think this
Bodie Da Silva with List Radio. Thank you, Bodie.
One of the best years for just receiver groups in general. I mean, we know San Diego's been known for running backs for so long, but I think this is a huge year for the pass catchers.
Noah Lax, you want to jump in here? You need a second.
No, I'm good. First, I want to get a low-key guy, Christian Aguilar. He had 13 tackles for losses last year for Eastlake, and he was a sophomore linebacker.
Defensive player, let's go.
So 13 TFLs as a sophomore linebacker, playing against some great competition, played against Lincoln, played against Oceanside last year. So I expect him to make a big jump. Another guy I want to mention is the quarterback from Mater Dei, Appleman. Appleman, he has a lot of weapons this year, and I think even though all those weapons are at Mater Dei right now, they don't have a lot of
the panic in your face when your phone froze there.
Yeah.
As you were scrolling through your notes was hilarious.
Like, oh my goodness! But like I said, he has a lot of weapons, but I think him as a quarterback, he gets undervalued, and I think he's going to be in a great offense, quarterback-friendly offense with some more coaches going over to Mater Dei. And it's going to be a lot of fun for him to use those toys. And I think he's going to have a great season and stand out for himself, not just with his weapons.
I can dig it. Anyone else on your list?
I'm good.
Uncommitted as of right now, right?
Colton, you want to jump in here with anybody?
Yeah, I want to talk about the most underrated running back in the county, Eric Hernandez from Castle Park. That kid is legit. He's fast. He's strong. If you know him, you know he's in the weight room constantly, and he can probably lift as much as any lineman in the county. I think, and his speed and elusiveness is insane. It's such a deadly duo. I was going to talk about Appleman before Noah got him.
Stole it.
But I want to talk about another Mater Dei guy, Trey Edwards. That kid's a monster, and I think he really is just the future of San Diego football.
Tommy, you were asking, is he uncommitted still? Who were you talking about there?
Appleman. I think he's got an offer from New Mexico State, but I don't think he's
correct.
He's still waiting for some more.
Still waiting.
He'll have a big year.
The commitments are starting to come, though, in all sorts of sports. We had a freshman at Parker commit to Vanderbilt baseball. I thought that was kind of dope.
Baseball kids are always so early.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Who's Villager?
Me, not to brag.
What?
What?
Who's Iggy and who's Shy Guy?
I'm Iggy.
I'm Shy Guy.
No!
I slipped today.
Deal. So there are the results. I will close this out, and I will say that the main thing that I'm excited for this year is the Helix offensive line. Sean Martinez anchoring that thing. They got some dudes, like some goons. Maybe is the best. Some goons is the best way to put it. And what are we gonna call them? The Scotties and them goons. I don't know. We'll have to come up with some specific nickname. Coach O and them goons coming out the East County. Give a little bit of that flair. But
best pants in high school football, Helix.
They're getting there, man. With the Argyle down the sides. Yes.
They don't wear them every game, but
well, and I want to highlight the offensive line because I mean we've talked about Buckner, we've talked about all their different. They've got Clay Petrina, they've got all these different offensive looks, but we're all talking about that because that offensive line is able to settle that up. So regardless of if they have the cardboard cutout of Kirby Yates that was traveling with the Padres playing quarterback or not, like whoever is in that backfield, I think it's just going to be fun to watch the fact that up front there's going to be some like behemoth-sized holes. And Noah knows a thing or two about what happens when you have that kind of firepower up in the offensive line. It can take you, steamrolling through a season to a championship. And, I mean, like, this could be one of the better lines that we've ever seen in San Diego high school history. Whether or not it ends up being, 5 D1 guys, 5 All-Pros, sometimes they're just good at the high school level. This is going to be one of those lines where no matter what happens, you will remember this is like, oh, man, those were some Some big dudes.
You know when you're like in practice and you're doing team and you're scrimmaging and you have all those open holes and you're like, dang, this is cool. And then in the game they get super closed down. Well, this line is gonna be able to. Those backs are gonna be able to experience that in the game, having those big holes. And I'm excited to see what they do because they got talent.
Dude, why'd you have to say Padres and hurt my heart like that?
Colton, you're
Why did you do that, dude?
Hey, we're coming, man.
We
Dodger
are.
fans, enjoy this one. You know what? Celebrate because we're coming for y'all. I promise you, next year and the years later, it's going to be a different story.
Yes.
It's our decade.
The fact that there's a pixelated photo of Manny Machado's mouth being shown on Fox or MLB Network last night, I'm just like, yes, that's our dude. That's our team.
Yep.
We're going down swinging. We're yelling at we're going down looking at a lot of strikes too, but we're going down metaphorically swinging.
Robot
at least.
umpires. Robot umpires.
Colton, I do want to just ask you a question because you are the offensive lineman of our group.
Yes.
How scary is that when you get to see one of those types of offensive lines like up close on the field? Is there one group that stood out to you? Because you guys moved a little bit of ground that your senior year. Well, like what were some of your more impressive offensive lines that people might not understand? They're that big.
I remember my sophomore year, we played Eastlake, and there was a certain guard on that team named Billy Dunkel that is probably the biggest human being I've ever seen in person, and that was probably my realization that, wow, there's very large human beings in this
Would
world.
that have been Billy Dunkel, Levante Webb, and Vincent Santos all on that line? Like, did that happen for 1 year, right?
Yeah, that line was insane. And then they had Jalen Graham as well on the D-line.
Was that the year that Dunkel got ejected from the game and then went straight to Twitter and tweeted the garbage emoji in the playoffs? Or was that?
It might have been.
Do you guys remember that?
I remember that.
You
I remember
Noah,
that.
you remember that?
I remember that.
Does nobody else remember? Am I the only one that remembers that other than Noah?
That was beast.
Colton, do you remember that?
No, I don't. I don't know.
So he got ejected out of the playoff game. I don't know if it was that year. It was his senior year. He got tossed from his last game or his second to last game, and he just during the middle of the third quarter. I remember Noah sending me the screenshot, being like, "Yo, I don't think the Eastlake game is over. Why is Dunkel tweeting?" And then we started digging. We're like, "Oh, he got tossed in the first half, and he's tweeting garbage emojis." And man. Good memories. Thank you, Colton. Thank you. Appreciate it. Guys, I really appreciate you all stopping by. Everyone who's listening and been watching this, thank you for putting up with another one of our test episodes. We're inching ever so closely back to a regular season, but this is our spring training as well as we dabble with some new formats, including new formats that are going to have us doing play-by-play. We've added that officially now. Everyone will meet Jonathan Rifkin in the next couple of weeks. We have hired on Alex Paz. The video, Tommy, did you find it?
No, I was looking at a picture he has on the Twitter of him at the captains shaking hands thing, and he's literally twice the size of the kids on the other team.
Wait, let's see it. Yep.
I'd probably
that
go home.
That poor kid from Valhalla. We're going to be doing. We're bringing on Alex Paz, the video editor from the San Marcos Blue Crew, to do game of the week edits for us. Do some mic'd up stuff. We got a whole lot of really, really fun stuff. So we appreciate you guys sticking with us through all the years because it's finally starting to pay off in terms of get a little bit of sponsorship money and whatnot.
Sir.
Yes, sir. All righty, folks. Any closing notes?
Be safe.
Be safe.
Enjoy yourself.
Go
Lakers.
Padres.
Lakers in 5.
Yeah, that's why you can't be that mad. You're gonna get your Laker championship in just a second, and that's gonna level it out for you.
One more. For
Eating
Mamba.
seven.
Mamba on 3. Mamba on 3. 1, 2, 3.
I'm just excited. I'll close that. I'm excited that college basketball is closing on starting to work out again. So
there you go.
That's my next closest
There you
addiction that I
go.
could. Like if Boeheim can take us to a Sweet 16 on a COVID strangled year, great. Let's take it.
I just want to say I'm still afraid of Billy Dunkel.
You should be.
Yeah.
You should always be afraid of Billy Dunkel.
Very.
Yeah. Colton's still afraid. Like we're in isolation and we're afraid of Billy Dunkel.
I'm in my 30s and I'm afraid of Billy Dunkel.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. You've been great.